Well, good afternoon, everyone. I brought with me Chairman Shelby to make a statement about the agreement that's been reached. Let me say, first of all, however, I've noted with great interest the Green New Deal. And we're going to be voting on that in the Senate. We'll give everybody an opportunity to go on record and see how they feel about the Green New Deal. Secondly, with regard to the matter that's before us now, I think Chairman Shelby and the Democrats on a bipartisan basis have done a good job. From a Republican point of view, there is money in there for new barrier fencing, and there is no cap on interior enforcement. It's not everything the President hoped to get, but I think it's a good step in the right direction. I hope he'll decide to sign it. We're all quite interested in that, as you can imagine. But with regard to the details, let me turn it over to Chairman Shelby, who's, as I said, done, I think, a really terrific job.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Of course, any negotiated settlements, nothing's perfect. You don't get everything you want. I didn't get everything I wanted out of this, but I think overall, considering that we're dealing with a Republican Senate, a Republican President, and a Democratic House, this is a down payment on where the President wants to go and where we want to go with him. That is to secure the borders of the United States. And we made some concessions, but we got some too. And we believe that the caucus will support this. I believe the House will support it, and we hope the President will support it. And as we release more and more of the details, we're putting 7 bills together, not just Homeland Security, which has been the linchpin here, holding up, but the other 6 bills too. And we hope to file them maybe late tomorrow night or Wednesday anyway, and go from there, and you'll have a lot of details then. But in the meantime, we've reached agreement on, as I say, on the principles, and we'll be looking at the language that we agreed on with the House conferees and the Senate conferees, and go from there. I hope to speak with the President later today. I last talked with him last Thursday when we had a candid and I thought a very reasonable discussion about where we wanted to go. And he told me then that he thought the best way we could do is open the government and try to work this out as best we could. And this is, I tell you and I tell the President, this is a down payment because we're going to build the structures, we're going to bring the technology, and we're going to bring the people, and we're going to secure America. Thank you. Any questions? John?
All right. Well, as the chairman described it, this is a down payment, but it's an important, I think, breakthrough in these negotiations. And I'm grateful to the appropriators for the good work that they put into this and to the agreement that they were able to strike. I think that if you look at the overall contours of this deal, the President gets to build wall. 3 times as much wall as would have been allowed for under a continuing resolution. And there is no cap on the number of criminals that ICE can apprehend and detain, which is something that the House Democrats really wanted in this bill. In fact, the average detention population under what's allowed for, as we understand it, what's been agreed to in principle, is about 45,000 with up to 58,000 or thereabouts. And that flexibility is really important, I think, to our ICE agents who are trying to defend and protect our border. So as the chairman pointed out, obviously there's a lot of give and take that goes into a negotiation like this, but I think on balance it does represent the best that could be achieved. It is a down payment on wall funding, and there is going to be physical barrier that's constructed with this in addition to the other elements of border security funding. So hopefully as we get the legislative text, we'll be able to continue the discussion that we have with the members of our conference, and we'll look forward to doing that.
Well, first, thanks to Senator Shelby for his hard work on putting a deal together that keeps the government open and secures the border for our nation. But there's another deal that's out there, the so-called Green New Deal, which is a raw deal for the American public, for hardworking American families, and to me it drives a stake into the heart of our economy, which is a strong and healthy and growing economy with optimism that is today at a high level across America. It is so interesting to watch this very hard left turn that the Democrat Party has taken, and it's also interesting to watch all of these Democrat presidential candidates rubber stamp this Green New Deal, which raises taxes, overthrows a productive energy market that we have right now in this country, raises energy costs, forces people out of work who are working in the energy field. To me, this is just so extreme that is way out of the mainstream of the American public, to the point that it is scary. It is that radical. It is a bad deal for the American public.
Well, our friends the Democrats have been abusing the rules on presidential nominations to the point that we just don't have floor time for anything else, and people can't be confirmed. Under President Reagan, the average time from when a nominee came out of committee until the time the nominee was confirmed was 5 days. Under President Bush, it was 6 days. Under President Clinton, it was 9 days. Under President George W. Bush, it was 13 days. With President Trump, it's been 55 days from the time we get a nominee out of committee till the Democrats finally will allow that nominee to come to the floor. President Bush, Clinton, and Obama had a total of 24 cloture votes filed in all three administrations in those first 2 years. 128 cloture votes have been required by Democrats in this Congress. And then when you do vote, 48% of everybody, takes 51 to confirm someone. 48% of all the people voted on after those cloture votes got 60 votes. 37% got 70 votes. A significant number got 90 votes. And if you look at the 30 hours of debate they've been requiring, virtually none of that debate, with only a couple of rare circumstances, is a debate about the nominees. It is clearly an attempt just to use up time, to not let the president have the team he needs in place to run the government, and to not let us have the legislative time we need. So we will mark a bill up tomorrow in the Rules Committee. I expect that bill to be reported out that will essentially revert back to a standing order we had a couple of Congresses ago when the Democrats were in charge, and have still 30 hours of debate for cabinet offices, for circuit judges and Supreme Court judges, but almost everybody else would have 2 hours of debate once they get to the floor. There are plenty of ways to slow down a nomination left to the minority, but when you abuse the rules, those have been the circumstances in past times, and I believe this time when the Senate will figure out how to change the rules.
Thank you. I'm glad that Chairman Shelby and, of course, Subcommittee Chairwoman Shelley Moore Capito have come up with a plan. The conference has a plan. I do hope that the President considers it as it unfolds. We'll take a hard look at what is in the text of the bill, but it is exciting to finally come to a sense of an agreement. One thing that is very fortunate is the fact that we are not seeing caps on detention of those illegals that are in the country that have committed crimes. And this reminded me of why I introduced Sarah's Law. I reintroduced the bill last week, and it's named in honor of Sarah Root, who was one of my constituents, a young woman in Council Bluffs who was struck and killed by an illegal immigrant who had been drinking and driving. And I tell you, he was not detained. He was probably out of the country when Sarah was finally laid to rest. So what the bill would do is require that ICE or other law enforcement authorities detain someone who is here illegally that has seriously injured or killed another person. It seems very common sense. So again, I want to congratulate the folks that have been working on the conference committee. I think we're well on our way. I also want to mention that tomorrow we do have confirmation on the floor of the Senate, and that is William Barr for Attorney General, and we're encouraging the members of our conference and others across the aisle to please support him. We would love to see him confirmed as soon as possible. And then lastly, Senator Blunt mentioned the progress that they are making to speed up the confirmation process. I think it's very important that we do that, so I want to thank Senator Blunt and Senator Lenk for their wonderful, wonderful work on this particular bill. Thank you.
Well, I look forward to reviewing the legislative text of the deal that Chairman Shelby and others were able to negotiate. I commend the Republican negotiators. It was just days ago that a number of Democrats were going into that negotiation indicating absolutely no money whatsoever for a wall. There's significant resources, as I understand it, that will be dedicated towards wall construction. I also heard that there would be arbitrary caps placed on the number of ICE detention beds, thus leading to more criminals coming into the United States and remaining in the United States. That also is something where Chairman Shelby and the other negotiators were able to get some movement from the other side. Lastly, the government under this construct would remain open. That's a good thing so that Republicans can continue to do good things here in the U.S. Senate, like confirming more of the judges that our president has nominated for office. So there's a lot that I've heard that I like. Of course, I want to review the text once again, but I do commend the negotiators for their thorough and hard work.
Leader McConnell, are you concerned about the president when he says, I'm unsure about the deal here, but he suggests that he might use transfer authority to move money around? The pot of money is only so big, and if some of those money to be put toward these DHS priorities are moved around from defense or disaster aid, and could that create a problem?
Well, first of all, I hope he signs the bill. And second, I think he ought to feel free to use whatever tools he can legally use to enhance his effort to secure the border. So no, I would not be troubled by that.
Have you not gotten any assurances that the president will actually sign this deal?
Well, I haven't asked for that because one of the things that happens around here is you reach an agreement and then the deal has to actually be put on paper. And frequently there's a lot of elbowing back and forth after the agreement is reached. I told the president I thought he, as well as all of us, ought to wait until we've actually read the final deal. I have recommended that if it becomes what we think it is, I do recommend he sign it.
If you oppose it,
Nancy?
Would the president have been better off accepting the deal that the Senate negotiated before the shutdown?
I think he's got a pretty good deal here. The speaker said there wouldn't be a dollar for a wall. Well, I guess we're going to have an argument now about what's a wall, but barriers. And that they wanted a cap on detention apprehension. So I think he's done just fine. I hope he'll conclude that because he's got to sign the bill.
Mr. Leader, would you consider overriding the president's veto if he vetoes the deal?
Look, that's way on down the road. I'm hoping that he will find this agreement acceptable and then he signs the bill.
Leader McConnell, the president says he wants to add to this deal. Is there any wiggle room here? Are you open to negotiating with the White House, or is this agreement a done deal?
Well, as Chairman Shelby pointed out, they've reached an agreement. They now have to put it on paper. We have to see if that reflects the principles, and we're hopeful the president will, once he does that and once we do that, we'll conclude that it's a good idea to sign it.